Welcome to Live, Let, Thrive, a podcast about the Airbnb life, the share economy, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Micah and Steve.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to another exciting episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Coming at you from Fort Worth, Texas. This is episode 295 of your favorite short-term, midterm, long-term podcast in the world. And we have a special guest today for y'all. Everybody knows her. It's Miss Zeona McIntyre, Mrs. Zeona McIntyre. Who is Zeona McIntyre? If you don't know, but you probably do. Zeona is an author, a realtor, investment consultant, and speaker. She has been an Airbnb host since 2012, and she now uses her decade of experience to help her clients house hack and build portfolios of short-term and midterm rentals. She is an avid real estate investor owning a double-digit portfolio of furnished rentals across 5 states. She is the author of the BRRRR 30-Day Stay book, a real estate investor's guide to mastering the medium-term rental. She has been featured on BiggerPockets, Business Insider, NPR, and more than 100 podcasts, including ours. Zeona has traveled to 48 countries. She spends half the year in Boulder, Colorado, and the other half of the year traveling the world as an international pet and house sitter. Welcome to the show
Woo,
again,
you got through it
Zeona.
all.
It's early for me too, Zeona. Yeah.
Like a really good read on the spotter. I was like, I
Uh,
feel the passion.
re- read on the spotter. That's a new thing. I like that. Oh
I
wow,
like it.
how you been? It's been a minute.
It's good. I just realized that I completely matched my background. I don't know if you post this on YouTube, but I'm like, yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
fitting in there.
Yeah, you're camouflaged in there. So
Uh,
so we did like a book club of Zeona on her amazing book, 30 Day Stay. If you don't got it, go get it. It's really a really amazing book. I mean, she dives in from everything from, of course, 30-day plus stays, the midterm rentals, to how she got her start. Her origin story and her and Sarah Weaver did a great job on this book. I love it. I mean, I'm reading it a second time. It's so good. And what one of the, I mean,
same.
there's so many places to start. But 30 Day Stays. I mean, in the book, it was the hot new thing and all that. And then you mentioned when we did our little book club meeting that it was getting saturated as well. As you know, like Airbnb, it was the gold rush, and then all of a sudden oversaturation. So what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that? How everybody just like, especially with all the regulations, oh, I'll just turn my Airbnb into a 30-day rental. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think nowadays it's more important than ever to just know the market. And if your market can hold and has the demand for more midterm rentals, there are definitely markets out there that do. And I think the best way to find that out, because there's just not a lot of like information online about this, about demand, even through Furnished Finder, it's not that clear, is to just speak with other investors in your area. So going to meetups is really important because you can talk to other midterm rental hosts that are saying, "Hey, no, I'm doing great. I get lots of bookings. I have no vacancy," or other ones that are like, "Oh my gosh, my property's been sitting for 3 months." Vacancy will kill your rental and your return. So you definitely want to do your research before.
And what are some great places to do some research for that?
Well, just going on meetup.com is a great way to find other investors. I think even BiggerPockets has events that you can look up. But just going to even your local RIA, which is like a real estate investment club, all of those kinds of events are generally free, at least for your first few times. And you can get a lot of information and maybe even meet partners and get money loans. I mean, there's so many things you can get from those meetups.
Okay, so you're big on the meetups, and that's cool. So you go physically to a lot of meetups still?
I don't anymore. I used to host one in Boulder, and that was great. I probably could stand to go out and do some more meetups. I am just a little more on the introvert scale, and so sometimes networking and meetups is a little bit rough.
So you do a lot of Zooms, I'm assuming.
I do a lot of small groups. I do a lot of one-on-ones, and sometimes these meetups end up being like 50 people. So then I'm just cowering in the corner.
That's crazy. One thing I've always wanted to ask you, because you said you grew up in Maui, right?
Mhm.
And you also mentioned you didn't grow up with a lot of money, correct?
No.
So how I've always wondered that is Maui only a place where rich people can enjoy?
No, I mean, I think a lot of what Maui has that's amazing is free, right? You have all the beaches and the hiking and waterfalls and stuff. So there's a lot to offer, but I think it can be a very hard life there as well because there's not a lot of options. Like when you live in a city, you can live further and further away from the city and it gets more affordable. But when you live on an island, all of it's expensive. So it can be a pretty tough place, but it's also a place that people learn to live frugal. And that was a skill that I developed early.
Oh, so it's helped you in life, really.
100%.
I
Yeah.
mean, because I've been a couple times. It's beautiful. I mean, of course,
Hmm.
if you haven't been, of course, go to Maui or try to get there. But I remember way back then. Well, I guess it's been about 7 years ago or so. I've been to Maui, but
Yeah.
like, and they told me, oh, go to the grocery stores and see how much a gallon of milk is there, and it was like $7 or $8
Yeah.
back then. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what is it now? Like $12 for a gallon of milk? I mean, I was just wondering, how do people live?
I don't know. My sister, she's like really into nutrition. And so she would go to a farm and get raw milk, and she was paying $20 for a half gallon.
Oh
So,
my, a half gallon.
yeah.
Just gotta sip that daily. Uh,
Yeah, you just really ration that shit.
would you invest in Maui right now?
I've never found something that quite makes sense. My sister finally just bought a piece of land. My family never could own there. And so I'm really excited for her because I think what people don't know is that when you go to Maui as like a quote unquote white person, there's kind of this like gringo effect because there's so many different cultures there. And so you're actually a minority. And so growing up there, even though I lived there over 20 years, I always felt like an outsider. And I think it's pretty incredible now that she finally is able to afford a piece of land. They're going to build their own home. And it was really hard to get there. And so it just feels like such a accomplishment for our family to have like actual roots there.
That's awesome. Congrats on that for your
Yeah.
sister. Yeah, they call it Howleys, right? People that ain't from there or from.
Yeah. Yes. I know. I was actually speaking with my husband about this the other day and being like, it's weird to say this, but I like fully understand racism and like the effect. And it's just a weird thing to say as someone who like presents very white. I'm like white and Hispanic, but I fully understand how that feels.
You always look like a little Native American to me, a little Pocahontas
I've
thing.
got a little of that. I'm just a big old mutt.
Speaking of mutts, you still
Yeah.
pet sitting?
Not today, but yes, we have some pet sits coming up. That is our favorite travel hack in the world. So if you guys haven't checked it out, you can always reach out to me and I'll tell you how to do it.
What site are you using? Do you use Rover?
No, we don't. And I think Rover can still work. We use trusted house sitters, and I used to pet sit way back in the day just through connections and referrals. But having an app is so wonderful because you can be very selective. And now I am older and pickier. So I'm only staying at the most luxurious banging houses. So I'm just like looking through all the pet sits, finding all the best ones. So yeah, it'd be a
What
great way to travel.
what are some of the coolest ones you've stayed at?
We do a lot in the mountains of Colorado. So my husband is a huge snowboarder, and instead of driving 2 hours there, a couple hours on the mountain, 2 hours back, and then maybe some traffic, we just go for like 2 weeks and co-work, and then we'll be just like 20 minutes from the hill. It's so great.
Nice kind of a local pet sit.
Yeah.
That's cool. Um, yeah, like I said, so many things to talk about on this show. And
Sure.
one of the cool things that if you follow Zeona on the Instagram, she got into the creative finance world real big. And are you still into that real big? And you're still an agent, correct?
Yes.
Because I'm
Yes.
bringing it
It's
up because
sometimes those don't mix. Oh boy.
because
Yeah.
I remember like when I started like following Pace Morby, people know Pace, he's the
Mm.
subject to guy. And I started telling agents that were showing me houses, I was like, well, can you ask them if they can do subject to? And they didn't know what the hell I was talking about, right? And I'm like, and I
Yeah.
had to explain it. I'll send them videos. Here, watch this video. This guy named Pace Morby. And this it's just it's real, it's better than me explaining it because you think I'm doing something illegal and you're like, oh, our
Yeah.
firm doesn't allow that or whatever their excuses are. Um, but
hmm
but could you go into real quick what subject to is and how you're utilizing it with your as being an agent?
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing about agents is that instead of just saying, "Hey, I don't know," or "I would like to learn more about that," they just say no. They
Yeah.
say, like, "We don't do that." They reject the idea and then it's over with. And I think that is a mistake because then you miss out on all these opportunities that you could have just added another tool to your tool belt. So definitely, if you're an agent listening, I highly recommend checking out some of Pace's videos. But there are a lot of different ways to do creative financing, and some of the ways people have heard of are seller financing or rent to owns. But there's a bunch more, and subject to is one that's gotten popular recently. And the way that works is that the loan on the property just stays with the property. So instead of it being paid off at the time of sale, that property just kind of, or that loan just transfers over. So it does stay in the seller's name, but you get to take it over and you take over the payments. And so what's great about that is you can get a really low interest rate, you can get a low down payment, you can close so much more quickly. So it can be a great way to acquire properties and it doesn't affect your debt to income ratio. You don't have to qualify for the loan. You don't have to have good credit. So a lot of times us investors have a really hard time even getting loans anymore because what people don't know is when you have a lot of mortgages, they don't like you anymore. So I know that when I have to get a loan, it's been a while, but it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot. So this is so much easier and cleaner for a lot of people.
Nice, nice. And so, do you purchase homes for yourself, subject to?
I haven't yet. I've sold a few of my own that way, and then I've sold lots for buyers and sellers. I've helped them do those transactions, but I am not in a place anymore that I'm buying that much. I am kind of transitioning into more passive investments and doing a lot of syndications and funds.
And why are you doing that?
I think it's because of the horizon. So I've been an investor since 2014. And even before then, I was doing Airbnb as arbitrage. And I just think I kind of burnt out. I was a big property manager for a while and I was managing in 5 countries. And then I like really pared it down and just did my own portfolio. And now I even have somebody helping me manage them. But I am tired. Um, so I am just like really loving the hands-off nature of if you choose the right fund and the right managers to manage those funds, you just give them your money and you don't have to do anything. They give me money back. It's great.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I have, I mean, a
Yeah.
couple of incidents happen at some of my short-term rentals, and like
Mhm.
some destruction happened. I mean, we'll get through it, but it's just
Yeah.
like, man, I need to. I really, it just gets overwhelming. I mean, just especially the
Yeah.
short-term side. Midterm's a little bit less, but things can happen in midterm rentals too. And that's one of the questions I was going
Totally.
to ask you with you. You growing, you doing books. You doing like I know you love to enjoy, traveling and having your freedom. And I'm like, but I a lot of people I interview on this show, their own, I mean, not nothing against it, but their thing is it's always their answer is always, oh, more. I want to get to 50, I want to get to 100, I want to get, but I'm like, to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, but why? Why do you want it? Why do you want more if it's already like really hard to handle? And you dig in deep on them, and you're like, yeah, man, it's stressful because this and that. I got stuff going on here and there, and hiring and firing, and like, but you're gonna get more of that. You want more of that, and I'm like, like, well, sometimes the answer
Yeah.
is less.
Yeah, I think so. And I think maybe that's something that's really helped me from coming at real estate investing from the financial independence side. So there's a whole movement called the FIRE movement, and it's financial independence, retire early. And that's where I started first. I just said, I want to retire early. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I started reading a bunch of blogs. Do you remember blogs before all the videos? Yeah, so I used to read a bunch of blogs. I got into that, and then I found real estate investing right after. And then that was actually a way that I catapulted to get financially independent faster. But I think always in my mind, there was this idea of enough. Like, when is it enough? When do I have enough money? When do I have enough returns? And so I just want the lifestyle, right? We talked about that a little while ago. It's like, I want to travel. I want to feel like I can be calm. I want to feel like I don't have to be somewhere. This morning, you had to message me to remind me that we had this show because I was sitting in bed just like dinking around. So yeah, it's like, I love that freedom. I never wake up to an alarm, and that's a beauty. So what I noticed is that these rentals were taking away some of my freedom. And I started with short-term rentals, and then I thought, well, maybe midterm rentals would be easier. And they were, but it's not totally gone. And then I thought, well, maybe long-term rentals are the answer, and a manager, because they'll do everything.
Mhm.
They don't. They call you up with bullshit. So I have long-term rentals too, and I don't fully love them. I feel like I'm managing the manager. So yeah, it's my answer is syndication. That's my new answer.
Nice, nice. So you don't have to do anything, just
Yeah.
collect the checks.
Yes.
Now,
And research on the front end. You have to make sure that who you invest with is good.
would you sell off your portfolio just to get rid of it?
I think I will slowly. There are tax implications to selling real estate, and real estate, especially as someone who qualifies as a rep status. So I'm a real estate professional. It is beneficial for me to own some real estate. So I'm trying to keep some of my like favorite low problem properties. We'll see. But like, I'm in the process of selling one now, and I'm just kind of like, here, let me just like get rid of one every once in a while. So we'll
Okay,
see.
don't want to take a big tax hit in the same year, right?
No. I'm trying not to pay taxes as much as I can.
But
Um,
people say that, and it's great to avoid taxes. But if you're gonna make a
mhm.
couple million off a property and you got to pay 500 grand, you still made 1.5 million. You know what I'm saying? It's still you're still in the plus, right? If you look at it like
Yes,
that. If you
technically. I'm just like, no, you roll that into a 1031 exchange, you can still put that in the syndication.
yeah, but
It's
then you
all
keep
about how you sell, you know?
yeah. I mean, and that's true. And I've been following a lot of gurus, as they say. And then I learned how to do the depreciation thing, the advanced depreciation, stuff like that. So on my
Yeah.
houses, I went, and was able to do the bonus depreciation, advanced depreciation, take it all in the first year, get a huge tax
Yes.
break. But then the next year, I'm
When you
like, oh
sell,
crap, yeah, if
when
and
you sell, it's
when
a
you gotta.
problem. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what it puts you on is a treadmill because like, oh crap, this year I have to buy a house or two, so I can get that again to counter the income I made this year. It kind of puts you on that. It's a good problem to have, but if if you're trying to downscale, it's kind of like I don't know, it puts you on a different treadmill. But it
It's
just
tricky.
depends on what you want,
Yeah. I think it's interesting because online you'll see people are like, oh, I never pay taxes. It's great. And it's like, yes, there are ways not to pay taxes, but basically you have to invest everything you make. I think people don't talk about that. So it's like, can you just buy food and that's it? And then invest everything. So I still feel like I live frugal and that I live very cash poor because as soon as I have a little bit to spend, I'm like, oh my God, I have to find an investment so I can get a tax deduction. So that's
Yeah.
the reality, kids.
All right. So what made you write a book?
Oh man, I want to write another book. I want to write one on creative finance and get it out soon because I just feel like that is a wave that may pass. Um, I, gosh, I just had a cool idea. That 30-day stay came to me at a BiggerPockets conference a couple years ago. I was standing in front of their bookstore and I was like, man, I really want to write a book, but what hasn't already been done? Because they had so many books then and now they have like 3 times as many books. But I thought they must have covered all the topics now and there's nothing new to do. And then later that day, I went into my room and I was thinking, oh, what about like midterm rentals? Is that like too niche? Like, would that be a thing? And it turns out they were pretty interested in it. And we turned it around really fast and it came out in the perfect time. So we just got really lucky about that. But I think it's a great book. Proud of it.
Yeah, yeah, it did come out at the perfect time because people were still, it was still kind of new to a lot of people. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
Jesse was out there doing his thing in California, Jesse Vasquez, a couple of
Yeah.
the friends of the show. But oh my gosh, I remember once I discovered these 30-day plus like insurance claims and stuff like that, I was like, whoa, why would I even want to do Airbnb anymore? It was just mind blowing, these checks that these insurance companies were writing. I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, that's like double what I would make on an Airbnb that month. And I don't got to do nothing. I mean, just I got to get them in there. And it was a
Yeah.
gold rush I mean, people like you and Jesse, telling everybody about it. It really spread like wildfire and people started, getting into all the sites that we're on to attract midterm rentals. But at first it was
Yeah.
nice. I mean, you'd submit something and you get approval like quick and get them in there quick because everything was like, I was like, when do they need to be in there? ASAP. Everything is ASAP, right? Now it got to a point, where, oh, well, we have to run it through the adjuster. And like, man, it could,
Mm,
they could approve it, they could deny it. Um,
yeah.
it's a little harder now. I'm still, we're still scoring quite a few, but because we've
That's
been into
great.
it, we formed relationships, and you mentioned that it's
Yeah.
it's it's powerful to get these relationships with these corporate housing providers that know you can provide something clean and safe and all that for their clients, and they know how to do a lease and all these little things, and you can knock it out in
Yeah.
like an hour for them, or less than an hour. I can get things boom boom boom, knock it out real quick and have
Yeah.
and have it to their desk because they just need to clear the paperwork real quick, get to the adjusters, get the adjusters to approve it. But like all that being said, it's even getting more difficult because the people are being more picky. Because I get, instead of it was just
Yeah. Too
one
many
or two,
options.
too many options. They're getting like 100 houses thrown at them.
Yeah.
Oh, we can stay here on the beach overlooking the mountains, or I don't know, whatever. But
Yeah.
anyways, do you
No, I
have?
mean,
Uh,
I feel like Jesse had the heyday because he started the midterm rental space in 2015. Like,
mm,
can you imagine? There
mm,
was nobody doing it. Like, I started in 2020 and I thought, like, whoa, this is crazy. But I remember hearing about it probably in 2018 or 2017 from a friend of mine who was a nurse. So if only I'd gone on it sooner. I never really had much luck with insurance stays. And I think it was because my properties are in 5 different states, so it's so much easier when you have them all in one town and you can be like the guy of the town. You're that contact that everybody starts to know. So I think that really worked well for Jesse, and maybe that works well for you. So that's awesome. I mean, I wish that that had worked out the way that a lot of the teachers talk about it. But I feel skeptical now. I definitely have a friend. He's outside of, ooh, it's not Nashville, it's Memphis. He's outside of Memphis and he's got like 12 places, and he is the guy of Memphis and they always call him and he gets all of the insurance days, and he is killing it with these properties. A lot of them he picked up on creative finance, and it's just like insane that you can get a property in the 200s and then you can rent it for over 5,000 a month. I'm like, okay, that's great. I wish I could have done that. So, I mean, yeah, there's so many people out there with their little niche that are just killing it.
It's such a cool industry because, like, I mean, back in the olden days, if you wanted to own
Hmm.
a rental, you owned one rental, maybe two, and then it's just long-term rental, and then you pay a
Yeah.
company to manage it for you. And that was pretty much it, right? And so I guess Airbnb came along and totally, flipped the script. And so people were able to, make more money if they had a rental property. And then they were buying rental properties just to be Airbnb. It just trend,
Hmm.
the way it changed. And then from the Airbnb stays, short-term rental stays, the people figured out the 30-day plus stays and getting the midterm rentals, and a lot of help from you and Jesse. Then it became that market. Then it became like the subject to thing going on. I mean, it's just like so many tentacles came out of the basic concept of just renting out a house for a family to stay in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is really exciting. That's what I love about real estate is that it hasn't bored me yet, right? It's like when I think I know it all and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of bored. I can't listen to any more podcasts. It's like I learn a new angle. Like this whole syndication thing, I still barely know what I'm doing, right? It's like there's so much intricacy about how to vet operators, and there's so many different areas and classes of real estate. I've gotten into investing in warehouses, like distribution warehouses, and I'm like, what? I knew nothing about that before, right? And learning about mobile home parks, and there's just so many cool things to learn. So I think it's going to be a forever journey.
I saw it, and speaking of that, Investor Girl Brit, Investor Girl Brit from
Yeah,
Bigger Pockets and all that, but she's doing syndications in self-storage. I'm like,
yeah,
self-storage syndications. I mean, there's syndication for everything, but I was like, damn, self-storage is the
sure.
next frontier, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. I think the one that is a good frontier, especially if you qualify as a real estate professional, which I imagine you do, is the mobile home parks because they have the highest cost segregation. So that bonus depreciation you're talking about, that one gives you the most. But self-storage is pretty high up there too.
Mm. And yeah, usually you get I don't know about self-storage, but you get help from the government, and you're buying in the what are they called? The recovery zones, the what is that called? The
There's some opportunity zones.
opportunity
Yeah.
zones. Yes, yes. And that's something I'd like to look at, because I mean they're everywhere. Every city has, the poor areas and stuff like that, but you can go in there and you can buy stuff with, get huge tax breaks. That's another facet, if you could tolerate that, investing in
And
certain
we're
areas.
learning. Totally.
Yeah, there's so many things to do. So, do you have any current like tips and tricks for people can land midterm rentals that, since the game has changed quite a bit since you wrote the book, do you have any like advice how people can land them nowadays?
That's interesting. I mean, I would say that definitely you want to start with finding a market that really works. And if you're looking at investing out of state and you're like, well, I can't go to a meetup, how am I going to do that? There are so many groups online, like midterm rental groups or just investor groups, and ones that are specific to an area. So you're like, oh, I really want to invest in Arizona. You can look up groups by city or state. So that's a good way just to kind of get an idea. And then from there, you can network with people or you can reach out to me. I have a really great list of investor friendly agents. And then I also get a lot of creative finance deals. So if someone is looking for that specifically, maybe come look at my deals. I have like a folder of them that I update all the time. But creative financing is going to help you get that edge over what you'd be seeing right now in the market because prices are still high, interest rates are still high, and that kind of kills your cash on cash return. In some markets, midterm rentals are not making that much more than a long term rental. And so you want to know that ahead, right? It's like if you're only going to make $300 a month more from furnishing a property, it's going to take you a really long time to pay off $15,000 of furniture, right? And see that return. So you just need to make those decisions in an educated way.
Nice. Did now do people ring your phone off the hook in December when they're like, "Oh crap, I need to buy something. I need to buy something. What do you
Yes.
got?"
Yes. December was my busiest month, which was refreshing because when I was just a regular agent, I mean, I'm an investor friendly agent, but not focusing on creative finance. People were like, December was dead. Like, we
Mhm.
have seasons in real estate, and nobody was buying then because it's winter and people have holidays. But this year, because we were kind of like running out of this nice bonus depreciation period, people were crazy. It was literally up to like the end of the year where we're like 10 days out and I have to tell people like there is no way we can close now. Like it's just not happening. Yeah. But it was a great month for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, bonus depreciation. I've heard
Mhm.
rumblings that they might go ahead and extend that another year. Is that true? Or what have you heard?
Yes. And if they do that, I've heard that they're going to reenact 2023. Is that what they're saying? I think so. So they're voting on it now. Hopefully, we'll know pretty soon. But that means we would have 100%. This year is supposed to just be 60% bonus depreciation for cost segregation. So if you can get 100%, that just really helps people save on their taxes. And God knows we need it. So I'm really hoping that happens. Plus, that would be a real big bonus push for my business. People are going to be knocking down my door. So yeah, I think it will happen. In election years, people tend to give you some bonuses and benefits to make you kind of veer one side or the other. One of the other things that's exciting that may be rolling out is the tax credit. I don't know if you've heard about that, that there is a first-time homebuyer tax credit that Biden just announced, and it hasn't fully passed, but they're kind of putting it into motion. And what's cool about that is we haven't had a tax credit since 2010, like a really long time. And one thing for people to understand is that a first time home buyer, to qualify for that, you just haven't had to, you have to have not had a primary in the last 3 years. So if you're an investor, you rent the place that you live in, but you own a bunch of properties, you can still qualify for the tax credit, which is kind of awesome. So maybe kind of look into that if you think you might qualify, but it's supposed to give people $5,000 off for 2 consecutive years. And that's nice. Like, who doesn't want a little extra free money?
5,000 off for 2 years. You get
Mm-hmm.
5,000 return for 2
Mm-hmm.
years. That's
Yeah, and so
totally
that's
10,000.
supposed to, yeah, a total of 10,000, and that's supposed to be the equivalent of like 1.5% less on your interest rate, and so it's like a savings of, yeah, it's $400 a month.
That
So
is
if
great.
that's
Yeah.
supposed to help like 3.5 million families afford getting into a home. So I'm pretty excited about it. They also have a secondary tax credit if you are getting out of a starter home. So you have to look into like what qualifies as starter home. It has to be kind of below the average price point of where you live. But if you're getting out of a starter home and you're upgrading into the next level home, they'll give you a $10,000 credit because they're trying to get people to sell their properties and move around so that there's actually inventory in this country. Yeah. So anyway, look into them because those can be great opportunities. If you're like sitting on the sidelines, go buy something.
So what happens if you move out, you upgrade to the next house, but you keep the other house as a
Mhm.
rental? You don't qualify for that?
No, I think you have to sell it.
You have to sell it.
Yeah.
Can I sell it to my
Yes.
corporation?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to piss off the tax guy.
So I do remember,
Yeah.
like you said, 2010 was the last time. But I bought, my
Yeah.
very first house in 2009, and it was I guess the Obama tax credit. It was like $8,000. They sent me a check for $8,000 in tax.
That's
I was
dope.
like, wow, that's pretty cool. And like, they haven't done it since, I guess. So
No, and I mean in 20 or 2009, I don't even know how to say that anymore. 2009, $8,000 was a lot of money, like way
shoot,
more than
yeah.
10,000 is today. I'm like, guys, it's a little cheap. Could you do something better? Yeah.
And so, well, that's good news. That's good news. It should keep you very busy. And I did have a
Mhm.
ton of questions. Well, I want to point out, it's so cool about this industry, about the investing in real estate and all that stuff and short term, midterm. And so many women are doing it, right?
Mhm.
And that's, you know, I'll go way back in time. I remember, and I'm a girl dad. I got 3 daughters. So I'm just blown away by how smart they are.
Yeah.
And I remember in school, in elementary school, way back, I'm 46 years old. So I remember way back then, I was like, man, the girls are obviously smarter than us dudes. I just always had that thought. I was like, they're way smarter than us. But I
Yeah.
remember how the teachers would coddle to the boys anyways. And it was,
Mm.
asking them more questions, promoting them more in a way. I remember that just like why the girls are smarter, but it's because they're coming from a past where, the guys owned everything, they did everything, they had all the jobs, and then the women, had a different role in society, and the teachers were coming, the mostly female teachers were coming from that. But the way that's been
Yeah.
changing and the way that girls feel like, they can do anything. My daughters, there's no limitate. They don't have any limitations in their head. Like my little 6 year
Yeah.
old, she's writing books. This is her new favorite thing now. She'll sit there and draw these pictures out, and then we'll sit there and make a book together. We staple them, and she'll read the book. And it's like the coolest thing to her. I'm like, wow, this is so
I
cool.
love that.
Yeah, it's so neat. But the way that it's been just showing in this industry in particular, I mean, you look at anything online, I don't say gurus, anybody that's on Instagram, promoting this industry, I would say it's at least half female, maybe more from what I see.
I would say it's a lot less than that, but I definitely think in the furnished rental space, women have an advantage. And I think that's so great for us to have a place where it's almost an easier fit because a lot of women in this space have a natural inclination towards hospitality and taking care of people and nurturing and creating beautiful spaces. So, it doesn't have to be what you're good at. You don't have to be a designer, but it can be maybe a natural fit to just feel like, yeah, I want to take care of people. How can I make this space comfortable for them? That maybe some guys don't think of right off the bat, right? They're just like numbers and efficiency. And of course, these are just very generalized ideas of gender. But it is nice to kind of have those spaces where I do see lots more women in this world. And it's very encouraging. Yeah.
I guess perhaps I'm meant by the furnished rental space, not the whole investing space in general. But from what I
Yeah.
follow, it's a lot of female, a lot of women doing like you said, and they're doing this cool designs, and they're saying why they're doing these things, how they're treating their guests, and then you look at the guru dudes out there, and it is numbers, they have the swipe left. This is how I was able to reach financial freedom with 3 rentals, and this shows you the numbers and this and that, and then they go into like how to screw over not screw over Airbnb, but how to like take advantage of certain it is more like that, whereas the women are promoting the hospitality and cool design and stuff and that aspect. So yeah, you nailed it right on the head. Is two different takes on the same industry.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's I just thought I'd point that out. But because I follow a lot of people, and then you see these conferences, and then a lot of them are still doing they're doing like women's conferences. Julie George and Tatiana's doing a bunch. There's I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a cool. There's nothing holding anybody back, and I love, and minorities are big in this industry too. I love that. So anyways, yeah. I just thought I'd point that out to you, but you already knew that, Zeona.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a passion of mine to help women just get a leg up and feel more independent, and kind of work towards financial independence in general. Because I think maybe I've just seen a lot of women feel like uncomfortable in finance. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to understand this, but I've always sort of deferred to somebody else. And I think it's just important for us to kind of take that responsibility back and understand it. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. So it's just fun to try to help women get going.
That's cool. One thing you mentioned in an Instagram a while back was investing while considering climate change. Now
Mm,
that was interesting because I mean this last summer was just freaking brutal in Texas. I know that
yeah.
much. But it seemed like the whole country was on fire last summer. But anyways, so what did you mean by like investing with climate change in mind? Just everybody's gonna start moving north because it's getting too damn hot down south or what?
I don't think it's that simple. I wish it was that easy to kind of get an idea of that. But I've been working with a climate researcher and trying to get some clearer ideas of different areas that may be less prone to natural disasters. So that would be like flood, fire, hurricanes, all that kind of stuff that can create a lot of um, difficulty over time. Because what people don't always think about is that you're looking at an investment for 30 years, right? So there is going to be a point where mortgage companies are not going to want to lend in certain areas because the outlook over 30 years is not going to be good. Or maybe they're going to do shorter term loans. But there are places like Florida where it could become a little bit of a hot potato where you don't want to be the one holding that property when you can't sell it again because now that nobody can get a loan, right? So it's just things to consider over the long term. And I hope technology saves us and we don't have to worry about climate change. But so far, that's not the truth. So, yeah, we're going to just kind of see how it goes. But I think as someone looking at investment horizons for a longer period of time, it's important to just do a little bit of research.
Yeah. And so it's funny, people can believe what they want about climate change. And
Sure.
there's good arguments on either side, but I always go back to follow the money and look at Florida, like you mentioned. People can't get insured out there. I mean, or insurance is
Mhm.
like tripled, quadrupled in price over the last couple of years because you might not believe in climate change, but the insurance companies sure do because there's being more hurricanes, more floods, more fires, everything that you mentioned. But so
Yeah.
you follow the money and it kind of reveals what's really going on in a way. But so that was
Yeah.
an interesting post. Yeah, you always make interesting posts. I love following you. Um,
Thank you.
so you wrote a book. You're gonna work on the next book. Um, that's cool. Let me see. What are some of these other questions before we hop off? What is okay? Here's a crazy question. What is some of the worst advice you ever got? Because I'm sure, like, I don't know, in everybody's investing life, you get a lot of invest advice from, let's say, the uncle or the aunt. Oh, I remember so and so bought a rental house and someone trashed it and blah blah blah. They lost so much money. Or what are some
Totally.
what are some of the I mean, it's kind of like you got to block it out. But what are some of the like worst advice or people try to put you on paths that they think you should go on or something like that? What sticks out to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this person the other day because I saw she had a listing somewhere. But it was a friend of mine at the time who was a real estate agent, and I asked her like if I should get into that. And I wish I could remember the year. God, it must have been it was like 2019 or even 2018 or 17. Anyway, um, I had a curiosity about it and I wish I'd started sooner. I didn't actually get my license as a real estate agent until 2020. And I definitely see why she would have said, don't do it. And I don't think it's for everyone and not for even every investor. But if you're an investor buying more than two properties a year, it could be you want to just do your numbers. And if you're somebody who's going to really lean into it, I mean, it can be life changing money that you can make being a real estate agent. So I definitely think it's a good career, but if you're someone who's going to just half do it, it's a really hard career too. So that I wish I'd started sooner because I've always been in the real estate space. So it's a natural thing to be able to even just do referrals, right? So I wish I'd done that. And then I'd say just in general, get advice from people that you want to be like rather than people like in your friend or family circle, right? Because a lot of people, as you're getting into investing in real estate, are going to think that you're crazy. They've never done that or they've heard horror stories. I dated someone who told me that I would never let you buy rentals with our money. And, that didn't last, but that was before I had so many, right? And then now I have like 12 rentals and all this stuff. So I think you really have to kind of look towards the direction you want to go and then keep like the blinders on so you don't get distracted.
Mm, that's great advice. That's great advice. Just block it
Mhm.
out. What yeah, also Turnkey. You mentioned Turnkey in some of your
Yeah.
posts. Why are you excited about Turnkey properties?
I think it can be a great way for somebody to get started who maybe doesn't have the time. So if you're looking for tax deductions, real estate investing has a lot that can be really beneficial. And then with turnkey, the way that it works is that you generally buy a property that's either new construction or recently rehabbed. Then that same company is placing tenants and doing the management, or they have like an offshoot of their company doing the management. And so it's kind of a one-stop shop. You like start and buy and then manage and everything through that same vehicle. And so it's really easy if you're someone like a doctor or a lawyer who maybe you make a good income and you want to be investing it wisely, but you just don't really know enough or don't have the time, right? So you can find an operator that you really like and then test it out after a few and then build up to a portfolio pretty quickly. So I love that. And with new construction, a lot of times they have in-house lenders and they offer really good rates. So I'm still seeing stuff in the fives for new construction, which can be great. So yeah, I think turnkey is a good option. I think a lot of times people think, oh, turnkey's cheating or, I'm not going to make enough, but there are still really good deals out there. And of course, you pay a little bit of a premium because someone is making it really easy for you, but I still see ones that work.
Especially new construction, right? Less maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, you may not have much maintenance for the first like 5 or 10 years. It's pretty great. Yeah, the long-term rentals I have are all new construction.
That's cool. Blogs, you brought up blogs earlier. Did you follow Mr. Money Mustache back in the day?
I did. We're personal friends now because we live in the same area, so that's great. I also really like Afford Anything. I think she's kind of transferred towards more like YouTube, but that's Paula Pant. So that's a really good blog.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what is the difference? I mean, there's Mr. Money Mustache,
Yeah.
he's teaching financial independence, retire early,
Yeah.
fire financial independence. And then you got the Dave Ramsey on the other side. And Dave Ramsey's totally 100% against debt, right? Is Mr.
Yeah.
Money Mustache, he don't care how you do it as long as you do it, or is there two different philosophies there?
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Money Mustache is really about simplicity and being frugal as a path. So I think that it's really easy to get there quickly if you're not spending much money because you don't have very high needs. So that's a great way to get started. And especially if you're young, like fresh out of college, you're used to just rationing ramen noodles and stuff. If you don't change your lifestyle too quickly, it's easy to just save everything you make as you start making more. Dave Ramsey, I haven't really looked into his strategy too much, but I know that he doesn't like debt to the point that he doesn't even like mortgages. And I think the distinction for people is that there's good debt and bad debt. And of course, if you're coming from a place where you're hundreds of thousands in debt with bad debt, like credit card debt, that can feel really hard. Or if you've just been burdened by student loan debt, which is not necessarily bad, but can be very extensive and people get sort of trapped in a lot of student loan debt, he's got great pay down debt strategies. The thing that I think is kind of off base is that he's not letting people get mortgages, and mortgages are such a great way to leverage. So it takes so much longer to save up $500,000 to buy a house than it is to just save up 3% down and get into that house and then start building your equity. So, I guess it's just like taking a grain of salt from each person, right? You like cherry pick what information really works.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I studied him a little bit. I guess he's cool with the 15% mortgage. He's cool with that. Uh,
Okay.
um,
You mean the
did I
15
say,
year?
yeah, 15-year mortgage. No, I'm sorry, 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
15-year mortgage as opposed to 30. So he does allow you a little bit of debt, but
Okay.
just mortgage. But yeah, I mean both philosophies can work. I guess it's important to know to have a plan with your money. 'Cause a lot of friends,
Yeah.
I guess I still have my day job. I go there a couple of days a week. It's like, just more like a part-time thing now, just to keep the benefits. But the friends at work know me as, an investor, the guy that owns multiple houses and does the Airbnb thing. So I kind of, they know me for that, but just asking me questions and stuff. And so I get questions a lot of time with their kids. Oh, what should, my kid's gonna graduate, my kid's gonna, start their career. What should they do?
House hack.
And yeah, that's one of the ones I tell them. Like, house hacking.
100%.
Don't go start renting.
Yeah.
The kids get excited. They get a little bit of money from the first job and they want to go spend 2,000 a month on rent, whatever. I tell them, of course, house hack, and then fill up the other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the house is too expensive. Fill up the other rooms with roommates, whatever. Do what you got to do. But I mean, I just pretty much tell them if they're not going to do they don't really like real estate, or they might do the arbitrage Airbnb. Okay. Yeah, you can ask me a million questions and not do nothing. That's usually how it goes. But anyways, I
Yeah.
just say, if they can live off half their paycheck or 75% of their paycheck and just put
Yeah.
25% in mutual funds, I mean, not, or mutual funds, or what do they call it? Index funds, or
Yeah. Index
whatever
fund.
funds. 25%, 50% would be great. I think it'd be successful and then stay out of debt. I just say it's just simple. But if they want to play the debt game, yeah, get into some mortgages and do it that way. Don't go get the fancy, shiny, expensive car. Don't go buy a McMansion because then you're stuck too. But it's just
Yeah.
it's simple philosophies that I was never taught. I was
Totally.
growing up, and go get credit cards. Oh, you get all these credit cards. But anyways, I just try to keep advice simple for people. What are your advice to youngsters? I mean, you mentioned the house hacking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, house hacking, I think, is the fastest way to get to financial independence for sure, and to just build equity into a home. That can be great. But definitely, if you can save 50% of your income, which sounds a lot, sounds like so much, because a lot of the financial educators out there are talking about just 10%. But the difference between saving 10% of your income means that you won't be able to retire until you're in your 60s or 70s. Saving 50% can make it where you're early retired 5 to 10 years down the road, right? So it's just really a difference, especially the younger you do it, because that money is compounding over time. So, getting your kids from their very first job into a Roth IRA, that can be a great thing because they're just building, for their retirement, which sounds like a long time from, 18, but it is important to just start building in those things. The thing I would say about a 15-year mortgage is I don't love that idea until you're on your last property. So what I mean by that is that if you're still in a place where you're like, I want a couple of investment properties or I'm going to keep buying down the road, you want that time horizon on your loan as long as possible because you want to get in for as little as possible and you want to have as little per month that you're paying towards that mortgage. Yes, that means you pay more in interest, but when you are ready to pay stuff down, then you can do double payments or whatever you want to do. But that just has to mean that you're not accumulating any more mortgages, right? So you got to have like a little bit of plan going. The last thing I'll say about house hacking is you can house hack even with a 1-bedroom apartment. So that's how I got started. It's all I could afford. And I live in an expensive town. But the way I did it is that I would go do pet sits. And so I'd be outside of my house and I would be renting out my place on Airbnb. Most places you can rent your personal home if it's your primary and you live there half the year or whatever, or it was traveling. So a lot of what people do is like geo arbitrage, where they go and they live in a cheaper place. Lots of people go to Colombia or Southeast Asia, and you can live for maybe a quarter of the price of what you would live off of from home. And so I've heard of people being early retired from one Airbnb property because where they're living is so cheap, right? So there are ways to do it so much faster than I think a lot of people realize.
And that's that's a fascinating one right there, the geo arbitrage, because I someone has commented on one of these posts and they said, well, I live in an expensive place, so is it better for me to rent here and then out of town have my rental properties or whatever? And I said, well, why don't you just buy something and live in it? I mean, you can get it for 3% if you're living in that city. Well, but it's cheaper to rent here than to buy something. And okay, the excuses. The only way I see that it would be better to, in my opinion, to rent something and then have your investment property somewhere else is, let's say it's Mexico, South America, or other places where it's cheaper, where okay, over there they don't really have the mortgage thing like we got here. You have to go buy something cash, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go to Mexico and spend 200,000 I can rent something for like $1,000 a month, really nice, up to 1,500. Yeah, really nice. And so I see that, going and renting something somewhere in South America or somewhere cheap instead of going and trying to buy something. Whereas anywhere in the United States, you said you can make it work, right? You can put something 3% down. And oh yeah, but the mortgage, fill up the rooms with people, fill a house hack that thing. So anyways, it's just limited, as they say, limited beliefs or whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this is a fun conversation. We're all over the place. Thank you again, Zeona, for hopping on.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to people out there that want to invest or do
I just
something?
say reach out. I have so many resources and I'm happy to help. So find me on Instagram, like you mentioned a few times. Zeona McIntyre is my handle. And then I also have a website, zeonamcintyre.com.
Awesome. Reach out to her. She will. She's cool. She's not bougie. She'll respond. And she's
Just a little
yeah.
bougie.
A little, slightly. You love your
I love
travels.
it.
You love your travels. But with
That's
doggies, I
right.
guess you can hang out with the doggies. Oh, I was gonna ask you, any
Mhm.
crazy pet sitting stories? All the pet sittings you done?
I don't know, not really. It's not that crazy. I mean, I think it's almost the same as going to an Airbnb, except you have a dog or a cat, right? I mean, we've stayed at ones that have reptiles and we've stayed at ones with chickens. There are ones with horses if you know how to care for horses. So, I mean, there's the full range of types of pets that could make it more interesting. I think we had one with alpacas, which was really fun.
Oh
They're
wow.
actually very affectionate animals. So that can be a cool experience. And, we still rent out our primary on Airbnb and try to travel like 4 months a year, 4 to 6 months. So works out really well for us because we live rent or mortgage free because it's all covered by Airbnb rentals. And sometimes we make a little extra. So it's great.
And what's the rule with that you can in Denver, you can rent out your place on Airbnb?
Yeah, I'm in Boulder,
Oh,
so
Boulder,
we're
sorry.
like 40 minutes from Denver, and our rule is 6 months. So you have to live in the home at least 6 months of the year, and yeah, that's easy for us.
Oh, perfect. That makes sense. You travel half the year and rent out half the year. Perfect.
Totally.
Well, cool. Where can people find you, Zeona? Instagram, Zeona McIntyre. That's pretty
Yeah,
much.
Instagram and my website are the easiest. I have a YouTube as well. I just search my name. I'm very searchable. So not that many Zianas out there. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for hopping on again, and wish you the best of luck in the future. And yeah, live, let, thrive out. See y'all.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Live, Let, Thrive. Be sure to tune in next week for all the latest in the world of Airbnb and all that entails. Bye-bye.